Yes, sir. So today we are going to be looking at the Theater of Blood. Just like we did before with the Tombs of a Masket guide, this guide is not going to teach you how to do every single room of the Theater of Blood, but more so how to get in there and start practicing so that people don't flame you later on when you eventually join their raids. And you can see that here I'm going to be in World 416, similar to the Tombs video. For Tombs you have World 329, for the general place where people go to find others to hang out and raid with. 416 is the one for Theater of Blood. However, before you join these teams, or maybe after you join these teams a little, at least how it went for me was I would get my ass handed to me, and then I went and figured out how to do the rooms that I was lacking in. So I was lacking in particular for Xarpus walking and general Verzik fights. When we get into this, we're just going to be talking about how to improve at Theater of Blood. You won't be seeing any Chambers guides from me on this specific topic of how to practice perfectly, because Chambers just doesn't offer the same things that Tombs of a Masket and the Theater of Blood offer, which is a way to repeatably train yourself for each room. And that is unfortunate. Another L for Chambers. So we have an entry mode for Theater of Blood. This is a basically infinite deaths and a scaled down version of each room with similar mechanics, and every time you die you get these bandages, which is just like a resupply for your food, so you can continuously practice over and over and over and over again. Okay, so let's get down to the goals. First of all, I want to preface this with you should probably do Theater of Blood entry mode with at least one person, so you want a dual partner preferably. This will make the Nylo room considerably easier for you, especially if you're not as experienced with gear switching and having to hunt down all the different Nylos and stuff like that. It'll be easier for you. There's also a bunch of mechanics that happen with teamwork that are exclusive to in a team for the Theater of Blood that you otherwise wouldn't get in a solo, and mostly no one is actually going to be soloing the real Theater of Blood. So for entry mode, it would be highly recommended to get someone. For rooms like Maiden, it will be able to show you how to coordinate when you have one person who is freezing versus another person who is DPSing Maiden. In Bloat, there's the fly mechanic that hits bounces between multiple people, so you also want to simulate that with a partner if possible. And then for Nylos, it's just easier to clear. And then for Soteseg, you'll have the bouncing projectiles between each other and the ability to split the big red ball together. That is also something that is a team's exclusive mechanic. So yeah, would highly recommend it to say the least. But let's talk about goals. Your goals for the Theater of Blood when practicing should be, for Maiden, you want to never get hit by blood once, and you want to also bring a mage switch for ancients so that you could practice your freezes, because that might be a role that you end up having to do in the main game when it comes to dealing with other people for your group raids at the Theater of Blood. You might have to be on freeze duty, and so you want to bring a switch for freezes, and you also want to bring a melee setup obviously for the whole theater. Your goal is to avoid the bloods and to freeze the red ticks that come out at 70%, 50%, 30%, I think are the thresholds. And then for Bloat, your goal is just to get past the room. If you are doing this with a partner, your goal is to not fly each other while Bloat is running around. You want to make sure that you avoid attracting any of the flies, so you're constantly not on the same side that Bloat is on when he's walking around before he goes down. For the Nylo room, you're just trying to get through it and get as good as you can for it. There is a static spawn for Nylos, but realistically, you'll probably just end up getting better over time through experience in the normal raid with other people, because every time you go into these raids, there's other people involved. It's unpredictable how much they're compensating for your skill and how much you're compensating for their skill. It's really hard to measure yourself based off of that alone, especially if people start to drop off and you have to carry, or if you drop off and other people have to carry. So for Nylos, you just want to get past the room. For Soteseg, your goal is to do the maze perfectly, as in not run over any tiles that could damage you, or to not path in a way that damages your partner if you are running it with a partner. You also want to be able to pray correctly against every auto attack that Soteseg does. And for the big red ball, if you are with a partner, you're going to want to split the damage with them by standing next to each other. If you are in a solo against Soteseg, it's not necessarily required for you to be able to eat the ball. That is something you can learn later on. This the main purpose that you're going for in entry mode is experience. So you're trying to get experience with all the different boss rooms and mechanics. And then for the room after Soteseg at Xarpus, you're going to want to learn how to melee Xarpus. This is your opportunity to do so. You could start out with range. Everyone will make fun of you, but you can do it with range. If you want to learn how to do it with melee, now is the chance, because you're in entry mode, so you get to practice all of that. Verzik is on a 4-tick cycle. All that means is it basically attacks like a whip. It's whip, 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 and then it's just constantly hitting you back and forth with the spit attack. You'll have to move backwards, so I'll be able to show you how to do that as well. Your goal for Xarpus is to paint the splats in such a way that you don't have any extra splats outside of the middle tiles. I'll show you what I mean. I'll probably put up like a little video segment over here where I'll show you like a picture or something like that. So yeah, your goal is to do Xarpus completely in this manner without messing up the tiles. I should say also, for Xarpus at the final phase, you also never want to get hit by his gaze, obviously. So you want to be able to move correctly. It's not too important if you run over poison splats in this instance, but you just want to be able to move around and hit Xarpus without getting gazed. So that's your goal. And then for Verzik, your goals are to do... Verzik has 3 sections to it. And for part 1, you're using the Dawnbringer. So you want to be able to use it effectively, and you don't have to go up to melee Verzik, but this is a point in time where it'd be really beneficial to have a teammate with you, because one of the mechanics in group theaters is that you have the Dawnbringer, you spec with it, you have like 2 special attacks with it, and then you drop the weapon so that your other party members can pick it up and do massive damage to Verzik while you are going into melee Verzik in between her magic shots. So that is what you want to aim for. Your goals, if you're soloing, is to never get hit in part 1 and to be able to go around the pillars appropriately. Your goal, if you're dueling or more in entry mode Verzik part 1, is to do the same, but also drop the Dawnbringer and go into melee Verzik in between mage hits. And then for part 2, your goal is to not get bounced by Verzik. That's basically all you're doing. Avoiding the ticks that spawn is not so necessary. It's good to learn. It's a good time to practice that too. Poisoning the purple spider is also something that you might want to do, but it's not too necessary. Your main goal with part 2 is to avoid all of the bounces from Verzik. If you are dueling or more with a team in entry mode, you want to be able to bounce the lightning between each other and not have one person get zapped. And then your goal with part 3 is tanking. So if you're in a solo, you're going to have the opportunity to be able to judge Verzik's attack cycle, which is 7 ticks. It's a very awkward, obscure number, and you're going to want to be able to step into Verzik so that you avoid melee attacks. So your goal with part 3 of Verzik is to avoid all melee hits from Verzik. Basically tank properly and have only range and mage hits sent towards you. If you are with a team and you are not the one tanking, well, then it's a bit awkward. Maybe you want to do a solo or just stay afterwards and die so that you can repeat and maybe you get tank again. So ideally you would be able to practice this easier in a solo raid. And then for the other mechanics of Verzik, you want to be able to hit the yellow pool properly. You want to be able to run webs properly as well. You don't want to get stuck on webs or mistime it. This is another mechanic where group play is better to do for entry mode. When you're both running webs, it's imperative that everyone stacks properly so you can practice that with a teammate as well. Get the right vibe for it. And that's pretty much all the goals I can think of for Theater of Blood. If you hit these goals, you will be more tolerated when it comes to Theater of Blood. There can be some nasty people in this raid, in this community, not gonna lie. But the important thing is that once you're able to get these mechanics down, in particular for Xarpus and for Verzik, you're going to have a way easier time finding teams and then also completing raids with other teams that you might not necessarily be familiar with in the main game on like World 416 or on We Do raids. So that is what you want to ultimately go for. And then I'll show you the examples specifically here. I can only really go over a few of them. Like I'm going to show you what it means for Xarpus and what it means for Verzik. Everything else, though, that is something that you will have to do and judge if you feel like you did appropriately. Like I said, the entry mode is best for Xarpus and for Verzik practice, and then the first 3 rooms are going to be more learned during group play, because that's when you really get challenged for different mechanics. But one of the other rooms that you can definitely learn to improve on would be Maiden, specifically with avoiding the blood attacks. You never want to get hit with a blood attack. It's always a bad time. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy. If you like this type of stuff, feel free to give me a like, subscribe, all that stuff. If you want to see me do anything else or cover anything else, then let me know as well. And yeah, enjoy the video. Let's get into it. Just like with tombs, you don't have to be afraid of this raid because it is entry mode. There is no risk of death. You won't be losing anything. It's only your time, which you will need to get better at the raid. So there is a mechanic to Maiden where it drains your stats if you are wearing a dominant combat style. So if I have the twisted bow on, it'll drain my range attack. If I have the sight on, it'll drain my melee attack. It's not so incredibly important for you to be able to have that down right correctly. So focus more on bloods, focus on freezes, and making sure that nothing gets through, and you should be good. Try to be moving around as much as possible like this, so that you are avoiding the blood attacks that come out. And if you do get hit by blood, then just restart. It's okay. You'll see that if you mess up, you can just stand on the blood and die to Maiden. And instead of getting kicked out of the raid like you would in a normal Theater of Blood, you just respawn with these bandages. If you look at the inventory, we'll get some bandages back, and these give you stamina and heal you, and I think they restore prayer as well. So it's highly repeatable. Every single room operates like this. So when you go, if you die to Bloat or if you die to Nylos, you could just repeat it immediately. There is no downtime, which is the competitive advantage of entry mode. And similarly for Tombs of a Mascot, it is also the case where you have infinite practice. It's very good. For bonus points, you could also freeze the blood spawns. Your teammates will definitely thank you for this. The practice for Theater of Blood seems a lot easier, honestly, than Tombs of a Mascot, because all you have to do is click entry mode and you're all set. The downside, though, is rooms like this, you're not really having the full training experience without having other people on the team, so that when you make a mistake like this, that you actually see the effect of making such a mistake with your teammates. Similarly, of how to recover from that if there are people on your team that end up doing that mistake. But yeah, our goal for this room is just to be able to run around, not get hit as much by the range attack, and we should be chilling. Ideally not get hit at all by flies. Sometimes it's inevitable. It's not the worst thing in the world. I know a lot of people that still get hit by flies in this room, even though they've done a lot of Theater of Blood, but it's something that will be beneficial for you if you are learning, because you are just getting used to the idea of having to go around Bloat, so that you're not constantly getting flied or flying your teammates in this manner. See how he turns? Now you have to move the other direction accordingly. That's what you're trying to learn for this room. And after you defeat Bloat, you could take bandages if you need them. You will always get them back at the end of each death. I should have also mentioned that regardless of whether you're freezing or not, for Maiden, you should probably bring Ancients anyway, just for this room if you want to clear, so that you could practice beyond this room for the other bosses that are later in the raid. And if you run out of energy, you could just hit one of the bandages, like I just did, and you will have a stamina dose. There's one more thing about Nylos for entry mode, in that the boss allows you to get like 3 hits off for every combat style. Normally in the main Theater of Blood mode, you will only get 2 styles off in time. So that's an important distinction to note. When you go to do the main raid, it will be faster and harder to kill the main boss in this room. Okay, so for part of your practice for entry mode is to be able to do this perfectly without taking any missteps. You want to start from the 3rd row and then go ahead. Okay, entry mode is just different, I guess. Okay, so for practicing in entry mode, you want to get into the habit of getting to this 3rd row. And actually, does it work? Okay, so just go ahead. Entry mode's a little bit different. Just like try to do the maze as fast as possible while being the most accurate. You can go slow as long as the tornado doesn't hit you. You want to practice getting those clicks right. So a way that you can get more efficient practice out of this room for Xarpus is to bring a 5-tick weapon that hits slowly. So if you have like flowers or a bronze spear, I think, or a bronze battle axe, something like that. Something that hits slow, that is not a 4-tick weapon, or something that does, or sorry, something that is like a fun weapon that hits slowly, or something that hits like a whip but doesn't do a lot of damage. This will give you more time to run around during Xarpus. And then after Xarpus completes a cycle, you can go just die to any of the poison splats, reset this room, and keep practicing until you eventually make a whole loop without causing excess poison to splatter. And I'll show you what that looks like after I get past this first phase. Remember, if you need more run energy, you have bandages. They act as staminas, so you could just consume one. If you die, you'll get them all back. So if I mess up like this, I can choose to go around in the ring or just reset. It's up to you. I would say just keep playing and then move on to the next ring. Keep smacking Xarpus with whatever weapon you have, and then keep on repeating. You can see that I respawned and I have all these bandages, including extra ones here on the floor. So you are completely chilling to die as many times as it takes for you to get this right. The annoying part though is that you'll have to repeat the exhumes every time you die. Something else to mention is if you want to spend more time practicing the melee walk for Xarpus, you can just let the exhumes heal Xarpus to full and not have to worry about them. If you want to practice stepping on the exhumes, then by all means go for it. It's up to you. But you'll get more time to spend running around when Xarpus is at full health. The way you want to move is you want to move back to the same tile that isn't yet splattered. But if it is splattered, you want to continuously move to the next one. This will get you 1 to 2 hits per square. These corners are tricky. It doesn't really matter if you rag them. You just want like a general idea. Okay, I ran out of run at the end there, so I ragged a few more tiles. You want to get to this point of Xarpus when you're doing like half of the arena where it's just lined up on these tiles. That's what you want to aim for. I believe in the tile packs plugin that there are these tiles around Xarpus you can get. But yeah, you're basically wanting to hit him and then go back to wherever the nearest tile is 2 steps away from you at all times as you go around without having to rag any of these tiles. Ragging a tile just means like you splattered it basically. And then when you get to this point in the fight, you just want to be able to hit Xarpus and move around without Xarpus actually looking at you, without you attacking while Xarpus is in your gaze. And if you want to restart from here, just go ahead and die to Xarpus or step on a poison splat and the room will be reset for you. By the way, this is how you start. You wait for the poison or the chirp sound and then you start running. So we wait and then we start. And that's what you want to do effectively. Now this isn't like the efficient 5.3 tick thing. This is a 5.3 tick or like forcing your scythe to be a slower weapon. This is not the optimized way to do this type of walk, but it gets the job done, and you just don't need to know the efficient method unless you want to. That's perfect personal preference. The goal of this video is just to get you more antiquated with the raid so that you can actually participate and pull your own weight with the actual encounters when you go to raid with more people. Alright, if you're low on supplies, just keep dying to Verzik and you'll respawn with more and more bandages, and then you will have enough to send your attempts. For practical purposes, you should aim to use your Dawnbringer specs and then drop the staff and then pick it up later when you have spec again. That's so that you can get used to trading the staff with other people in the raid. Or what you could do alternatively is start the raid here. This is where everyone starts. And then you can go up to the pillar, and then you could drop your Dawnbringer right here, wait for Verzik, and then go in and melee Verzik. You do your 2 hits and run back. That's how you want to treat part 1. And if you want more time to do this method, you don't have to use the Dawnbringer specs, and this will keep Verzik's HP extremely high. Also, do remember you have bandages for stamina. If you want to just get past this first part, you could just use Dawnbringer. You don't have to do the melee setup if you don't want to. And for this part, you're trying to avoid getting bounced. You also want to get used to swapping to your mage prayer for this phase. So I see this happen with people that are new. They'll keep pray range on. I did this too. You want to get used to swapping to pray mage when the healing phase starts with the red spiders. With this part, you want to avoid all melees as well as handle all the mechanics well. You should read up on the mechanics and how they work. Dodging the exploding spiders correctly is not necessary, but it is good to do. It's good to get in the habit of. What you're trying to do is avoid melee attacks while you're doing everything else. Remember that your bandages act as stamina. So if you want to do the yellow attacks without the tornado, then you just wait before Verzik hits 20% HP, and then the tornadoes will spawn. Then the yellows will spawn without tornadoes if you want to practice getting to the yellows in time. Or you could have the tornadoes spawn and try to play around with dealing with yellows while you have an active tornado. Which apparently I still need practice on as well. And if at that point you feel like you need to repeat the fight for other parts of the mechanics that you feel you're lacking on, just go ahead and die, and then you can just restart the whole fight. Alright guys, that pretty much does it for me for this video for Theater of Blood. It's not as exhaustive as Tombs of Amaskia because at the end of the day, this is a raid that you more than likely will need a team to play with in order to actually complete. Very few people can actually do the thing solo, and even less can do the harder mode version of this raid. So you will want to find a group of people to play with. Use the experience that you've gained during entry mode to supplement your experience with the main raid with a team, and ultimately the way you'll get better is by raiding. You'll have to go with an actual team, and you'll have to keep sending raids, and eventually you'll pick up on certain things, get better and better, and close the gaps that you have from not being able to properly practice the other rooms, given that entry mode is scaled down and has missing mechanics from the normal raid. So I hope that helps you out. I hope that makes the Theater of Blood more approachable. It obviously helps to do this with friends, but if you can't find any, then go to either 416 and hope that you get lucky with the random people you find there, or hit up We Do Raids on Discord. People are generally pretty okay over there, and that's where I learned actually, is someone on Discord was able to properly teach me how to do the raid, and now I'm pretty decent at it myself. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy, get those sites, like and subscribe, all that fun stuff. See you later.